You were Peter, weren't you?
Sorry?
You were Peter, weren't you? Sorry?
Sorry?
You were Peter, weren't you? Sorry? Peter? Like, was
My
that
name? No. John.
John, sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Blake.
Nice to meet you.
I actually do all the studio stuff at my school, and I can't help but admire your cameras.
Oh, cheers.
Yeah. What type are they?
Like PMW EX3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. They're very nice. I can't help but love them.
Thanks. No worries. Cheers.
Did you have a white card? Oh yeah, because we didn't have a white card in our table.
Thank you, everyone, for responding so definitively to the bell. We now enter a series of 3-minute presentations, supplemented by 2 minutes for question and answer. And I'll just remind people about the card system, because we enter a period of where it's a bit more critical that we stick to time. So if people are anxious about the timing and look sideways at me, the green card will indicate 3 minutes is up, and if the red card is shown, may God have mercy upon your soul. Our first speaker is someone from whom we've already heard already, but we'll have a little bit more detail about her own research. So I'd like to welcome Charlene Taylor, the Deputy Director of the Marshall Centre and Associate Professor at UWA. Charlie.
Right. Well, thank you very much, John. So I'm going to very briefly describe what my research programs are. I tend to divide them into two large categories, one reflecting my left brain and right brain activities, as I call them. So I'm a classically trained microbiologist and academic, and I was trained in molecular microbiology. And so generally I have started my career by looking at pathogenesis of two important gram-negative bacteria, Neisseria meningitidis and Neisseria gonorrhoeae. So Neisseria meningitidis causes meningococcal disease, Neisseria gonorrhoeae causes gonorrhea. Neisseria meningitidis, I've done a lot of work on that, particularly with the Department of Health in Western Australia and South Australia and Path West. In that space, I'm involved in doing use whole genome sequencing to map the epidemiology of this organism across Western Australia, and also feed into other collaborative frameworks in other departments of health across the country. We were involved in a outbreak analysis at the end of last year in Kalgoorlie, which led to the intervention by the health department in Kalgoorlie in vaccination against this new strain of meningococci, and that has led directly to the intervention in this state of the introduction of the ACYW vaccine. And once that announcement was made by the West Australian Health Minister, then the Eastern States also decided that they would introduce that this year. So part of my role is also to be a consultant, so I consult at the South Australian Pathology Service and the Department of Health there, because they're running a vaccine trial for the other organism in Neisseria meningitidis that isn't currently vaccinated, and that's the serogroup B isolate. That's the one that you see mostly causing disease in very young children, and they're running a state-based vaccination trial there to see whether or not that particular vaccine called Bexsero will be suitable for release in Australia. In terms of Neisseria gonorrhoeae, I also use those same kinds of tools to understand this particular organism. In this case, there is no vaccine. It is multi-drug resistant. We're starting to see cases of untreatable infection around the world, and we're keeping an eye on what's going on in this state. The level of disease here is very high compared to other parts of the country, mostly because of issues around access to health, etc., and certainly northern regional Australia. But we're now seeing a much faster rise in the rate of gonorrhoea in the Perth metropolitan area, and we've got some concerns around multi-drug resistance there. So we're keeping an eye on that, again with our colleagues and the Department of Health in Path West. I do collaborate extensively. Anyone else who's got other organisms of interest, Pseudomonas in terms of cystic fibrosis is something that I'm doing with a clinical colleague, and Group B Streptococcus again with another clinical colleague at Fiona Stanley Hospital. In terms of the other side of what I do, because I have a very strong interest in biochemistry, and I started a small molecular drug design pipeline with my colleagues here at the University of Western Australia, and those are Alice Freelink and Keith Stubbs, who are in the audience today, and Natalia Sakar-Tyson, who's originally from the UK, the Defence Science Technology Laboratories, but has been a great addition to our team. We also have other members of the team across the country working on various aspects of this project. In our case, we're looking at inhibiting resistance, and we're specifically targeting our interests on organisms that cause sepsis, And organisms that cause sepsis have recently become more resistant to what's termed the last resort antibiotic, which is colistin. And we have had some success in understanding that particular resistance determinant to colistin, and that's something that our Relink has successfully solved. And with key stubs, we've been looking at a pipeline to look at small molecules that should inhibit this resistance determinant and allow us to then restore the use of colistin as a successful therapeutic treatment. So those are the things that we're doing there. So just okay. So for me today, yes, I'm looking for partners who can give me some advice on drug design past the initial discovery, how to get into that pharmacodynamic, pharmacokinetics area, attracting funding for generic medical countermeasures, because we think the theme of what we're doing here can be applied to many other situations in bacterial disease, and connecting us to complementary groups and looking for funding support for vaccine design for Neisseria gonorrhea is another one of those things on our wish list. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlene. I'm going to have to ignore the bit of the script that says we have time for a couple of questions, which we don't. But please, there are opportunities using Twitter to provide questions, and if we do have time collectively at the end, you'll be able to return to some of them, at least. Our next speaker is Dr. Michael Winlow, the CEO of Linear Clinical Research, who, amongst other things, is, of course, a significant sponsor for our afternoon.
Thank you, honourable guests. It is a pleasure to be sponsoring such a great event with such a great structure. Love the high bit rate. If we can obviously keep the noise. Let's get that cheesy photo off. So the world's best health systems will provide patients with access to the world's best medicines. And increasing patient access to those medicines is Linear's founding and driving core mission. And to accomplish this, we participate in a network of change. And you might identify yourself with one of the elements in this diagram. Whether you're a researcher searching for a eureka moment or a funder looking to back those discoveries into fundable opportunities, or perhaps you are part of the service providers supporting clinical trials where those innovations can be tested for efficacy and safety. And then finally, the great wish is that clinicians will start using your discoveries as part of standard medical care. Now, Linear plays a critical role in its ecosystem by providing an environment to run those early phase clinical trials. And our founding story is one of collaboration as well, between the vision of then Director of the Harry Perkins, Professor Peter Clinton, and Professor Peter Leedon, who is now the Director of the Perkins, working closely with the Department of Commerce at the time to provide the funding and resources to build this facility located just a short distance away at QE2 campus. But also, and perhaps most importantly, from the vision of the Health Minister, and I really wanted Roger Cook to do this, but in kind of an example of political innovation, the Health Minister was at the time, able to grant Linear access to any clinician and patient group in the state, meaning that Linear would not just be a facility or a service for Charles Gardner Hospital, but actually run as a state service, where any investigator interested in running a clinical trial could use our resources, and importantly, any patient who might qualify for life-changing therapy could have access to that treatment. So what this has meant is just in a very short amount of time, we've been able to deliver over 150 clinical trials across 19 different therapeutic areas. We've been a particular success in oncology, where we have a very engaged community of investigators and clearly patients as well. But I want to note that these trials are being done with the world's best medicines. In fact, 90% of our trials are for discoveries from all around the world, predominantly in the United States, but increasingly from China. And so we're able to be a world-class and high-performing clinical trial unit in the most isolated capital city of the world, purely because we have a suite of capabilities that arise from tight collaboration between local investigators, local researchers, and service providers like yourself. So I encourage you that if you're interested in clinical trials, if you'd like some advice about how to take your discovery to that next level and important step into people, or if you would like to help us on our mission of getting to China, we'd love to speak with you. Thank you.
We do indeed have time for a couple of questions. I think we have one down there. Do you have a microphone or...
Thanks. Brian Liebman, Executive Director of Resac Health. I just wanted to ask you, Michael, I noticed from the slide that there are many different countries and regions that are using your services, but not much from Australia or perhaps Western Australia. Why do you think that is?
Not yet. Well, I think if you go back to this slide on the, you know what, I think we're doing great benchside discovery. We may not necessarily have all of the expertise to take those discoveries into entities that can support trials. Also important to note, this is a very, very long and difficult journey to get anything from a discovery into becoming a sponsor. I think we need to be patient. We're certainly seeing at the Perkins signals of early discoveries making their way to clinical trials and starting to approach us, and I think it's only a matter of time before we're doing our first trial for a local West Australian company.
Any other questions? Right, here.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to have the role. And one of the hats I wear is as a pediatric oncologist. And one of my concerns is that in oncology we seem to be very good at getting patients on early phase trials and winning a certain played a fabulous role. But not so much in phase 3 trials as your pie chart shows there. So that once it gets out into the clinic, it's very much reliant on just oncologists being pawns of the marketing people from the pharmaceutical industry rather than science at the bedside at that point. What can you teach them about how to be more scientific about phase 3 trials?
Yeah, that's clearly an important question. We play an important role in, I think, educating at least the early career clinicians and some of the established physicians who are interested in phase 1. And hopefully we're setting things up so that those trials eventually mature to phase 2 and phase 3. As you know, there's a huge attrition rate to success as drugs progress from those different phases. One of the ways that we are helping, I guess, educate or professionalise the medical establishment, there's two things I'd like to point out. One is training junior medical officers. So we actually have a rotation now, taking junior medical officers through linear clinical. We apply our third junior doctor this year, and that's a program we'll continue to support. We also employ a full-time oncology fellow through the investigator funds, donating that back, giving that individual exposure. I think the other thing is just getting the message out there that clinical trials is research-based therapy, that by building capacity and capability in delivering clinical trials, you're also educating clinicians, you're bringing better therapies to patients, and you're providing new opportunities to kind of be on the cutting edge. And that have flow-through effects through the whole health ecosystem.
Thanks very much, Michael. I'll rely on others to point out if there are some really valuable questions on Twitter that I'm not picking up, if that's okay. Our next speaker, Professor Tim Atkins from the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory in the UK.
So in the UK at the moment, it's height of summer and it's raining. What we've got called squally showers, 30 mile-an-hour winds, and temperature of 15 degrees. So it's a real pleasure to come here in winter. And it seems to be 22 degrees, and you really do live in a beautiful part of the world. Thank you very much to the Marshall Centre, and in particular Matali Sarkar-Tyson for inviting me to speak to you today. My name is Tim Atkins, and I am from the Defence Science and Technology Laboratories, Porton Down, in the UK. We're located in the south of England, and we're part of the Ministry of Defence. Relatively large organisation, so 3,000 to 4,000 people in size, and an annual turnover of somewhere between 400 to 600 million pounds per year. We aim to deliver high impact S&T for the UK's defence and security requirements. So 5, 10 years ago, that would have said just defence. The organisation is broadening now, partially as a consequence of global developments into security within the United Kingdom as well as outside it. The programme, the S&T programme, is split up into a number of capability areas, and I might go through all of these in the interest of time today, but you can spot some ones that are relevant, and what you can see is that it's a very broad organisation. The organisation is mostly staffed by engineers. In fact, biological sciences and microbiology in particular are very small parts of what it does. But the aim is to bring all of these capabilities together to deliver holistic solutions. And if you pick cyber, for example, we've heard about cutting-edge healthcare, and cutting-edge healthcare is important, but it's no longer just about medicine and science and microbiology and chemistry and those traditional science capabilities, because events in the UK a few months ago taught us that if you release a computer virus into the healthcare system, you can pretty much collapse it, and our healthcare system is inoperable for a couple of days as a consequence of the virus within the IT infrastructure. So we do a lot of things with cyber, counter-terrorism and security, as you can imagine. We're quite busy at the moment as well, supporting both overseas operations but also events in the United Kingdom. I'm from the CBR division, which is where we do most of the biological sciences research. I'm a microbiologist by training, and I lead the Medical Countermeasures Programme, so the programme that develops interventions against dangerous pathogens, which is over. The programme itself is split up into three areas. Protecting our people really is about patients, so it's about intervening once individuals are sick or once individuals may be exposed. But increasingly we're moving towards what we call upstream prevent. So increasingly we're trying to intervene before we have an issue, essentially. And within there we do things like assess hazards, we assess consequences, so we do quite a lot of consequence modelling, computational modelling, we do quite a lot of analysis and attribution. So some of the work that's been in the media that we've performed recently has been around the use of chemical warfare agents in Syria, and we did the analysis and attribution parts of those programmes. We're increasingly interested in being able to disrupt, disable and eliminate offensive programmes before they become a problem for us, and indeed also to influence individuals away from particular courses of actions. Within the Medical Countermeasures Programme, very briefly, we develop vaccines and antibiotics, and it's funded from a variety of funding sources, including the UK Ministry of Defence, but also we draw funding from a variety of other places, including the US government, for example, and a number of research organisations in the UK. And I think that's probably 3 minutes.
Certainly time for a question or two. Anyone like to lead us off? Is there something on Twitter, personally, I can see? If I can, without the there's from the Senator back.
I'm interested if there are any particular insights relevant to our region in biological security relative to
So if I understand the question correctly, one of the reasons we work very closely with you guys in Western Australia is we share an interest in norovirus, which I think is a community-acquired disease here, and it's one of the agents that we're concerned about in the UK. So that's primarily the basis of the relationship that we certainly started off with the University of Western Australia.
If I can approach the microphone apologetically and say it is time to bring on our next speaker. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Jim. We now have Dr. Alma Fullaria, who is the head of immunology and translational research at Conde.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to present this Networking for Change event. So I'd like to introduce OnDeck. So OnDeck is a Perth-based early small-stage biotech startup founded by Professor Gary Marshall. So we are here to develop innovative products to manage allergic and other chronic inflammatory disease, and what we are trying to do is develop the product called Imbalance, based on a derivative of Helicobacter pylori. So we're a small research-based team hosted by the Marshall Centre up on site at Q2, and we would like to, as I said, develop these natural immunomodulatory products based on Helicobacter pylori. Our mission is to actually rebalance immune health to combat allergic and chronic inflammatory disease. Our first project and the current project that we are working on is to develop a treatment for allergy, and the target indication is atopic dermatitis. So what we seek, what we depend on largely are partnerships. We have many current partnerships with production partners, formulation partners. We partner for preclinical efficacy and safety studies, and also clinic. Going forward, as you've heard, the path from discovery to a product in clinical trials is slow, long and expensive, and we need to cross this valley of death. So together, I think, with partnerships with clinicians, industry, institutional and government, we might be able to do this together.
Again, I invite questions for Chris Peacock.
I was just curious, are you thinking of using live or dead Helicobacter, or just subsets of proteins, or any specific areas?
Very good question, which I need to point out in my 3 minutes. So we're using a safe derivative of Helicobacter pylori. So we are using a non-infectious cell version of the bacteria.
With live bacteria?
It's not a live bacterium, it's a killed bacterium that we have shown to be safe in animal models, and we would like to embark on human safety studies to demonstrate its safety in humans.
Chris, your question draws me into that area of some microbes being so adapted to their host that they can be terrific vehicles. Once they're attenuated, terrific vehicles for the delivery of other vaccine antigens in the host. And I think that's part of the object.
Correct. So one of the very first projects that we tried to do was to develop Helicobacter as a vector to carry vaccine, to deliver vaccine antigens and other biologics to the host. Obviously, using a live bacterium carries a certain risk for Helicobacter pylori, so we've modified our mission, and currently we use a killed form and are trying to combat the large problem of allergy, particularly in Australia.
Any other questions? Anything on Twitter that I've missed? No? Nothing yet? Thank you. And we have one final speaker in the first of these 3 sessions, the commercialisation advisor for the Department of Industry, Innovation and Science is Cheryl Frame, and Cheryl is going to talk a little bit about the work she does.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for inviting me here today. Special thank you to Joe. This is a little bit of change of gears from the pace we've had so far. We're moving away from all the erudite researchers you've heard from to talk a little bit about where funding comes from for the projects that they're working on. The federal government has put a tremendous emphasis on innovation, as you well know. When they came into power, the first thing they announced was the NISA program, the National Innovation Science Agenda, which really put a lot of funding into the sector, most of which was aimed at researchers and into research entities. The other 2 flagship programs that they run is the R&D Tax Incentive Program. It's been going for many years and remains the flagship for businesses involved in innovation, where they can claw back up to 45 cents in the dollar for any money they spend on developing new technologies in their quest to find solutions to industry problems. The other flagship program is the Entrepreneur Program, which has a number of elements associated with there's such an emphasis on innovation? Well, it's a well-known fact that Australia seems to be really good at research, but not so great at commercialising the derivatives thereof. As you look at the left-hand side of the screen, in the very early stages, there's tremendous risk associated with commercialising technologies and very little appetite from individuals, high net worths, or even from venture capital firms to invest at that early stage. It's only once the technology has been proven and de-risked to a certain stage that that appetite develops. And so government has stepped in to derive programs that might be able to assist both researchers and business in the early stage. The R&D tax incentive is aimed at business, and that raises a question in itself as to at what stage one should form a spin-out company, particularly for research that comes from universities. There's a great tendency to keep it within the university confines as long as possible, so that you can get access to certain other programs that are available. But the question arises when you spin it out and really which program is most suited to the need at that point in time. If we look at the entrepreneur program, it comprises 4 major elements. The bottom 2 are core to what you're interested in today and the ones that I'll cover in detail. Really, the Innovations Connection program and accelerating commercialization. Accelerating commercialization is the program with which I'm associated. It is a competitive grant program, and because there's so little funding in the bucket, it gets more and more competitive as we progress. It's a program that offers up to $1 million, which has to be matched dollar for dollar to any business wanting to commercialize a technology. Research organizations can also avail themselves of this grant program, but a maximum of $250,000. And grants have to be completed within a 2-year period. The program is more than just about money. We recognize that companies need different support at different points along their journey, and that's why they hire commercialization advisors like us, but more importantly, we have an expert network. That's a network of very well-respected people who have domain expertise or business expertise that we can call in to help those organizations as they need those skills. The Innovation Connection program is one that tries to connect businesses with researchers as they need it. To de-risk a product or a novelty, an innovation, the business definitely has to engage with users outside their own gambit, and that's usually with a research organization and university. We heard from Elmer earlier. OnDeck has availed itself of a grant under this and has connected with people to help her through the CSIRO. Dimerix is a nice example of engaging with UWA and the University of Melbourne. And I think proteomics are represented in the room. They've availed themselves of both grant programs at different times to meet their needs. One of the problems that we have in connecting business and researchers is that they don't know how to connect. We talk all too often about industry engaging with researchers and how we facilitate that. But in actual fact, it's not industry that needs to engage, but individual businesses. And each university has a different way of working with business, a different structure, and there is no single point of contact or a defined pathway through that that makes it easy for businesses to connect. So with our programs like Innovation Connection, it really comes down to very much who you connect with, who you know, and how you're referred on to other places that might be able to help you. The other problem that businesses face is funding. Who pays for what? What is the university support? Is there additional funding available to them through the university if they avail themselves of university support? And what does that do to the IP ownership? There was a very interesting seminar I went to last week about collaborative IP ownership, but that's another story for another day. These are just some of the issues that I think face business today and things that we need to find good answers for to make that journey easier. So that really is all I had to say. I'm happy to answer some questions.
Thank you, Lauren. I'm just thinking that in the interest of time, only lots of really interesting questions thrown up by that presentation, but perhaps best addressed one-on-one in the break, and then perhaps in the interest of creating that little bit of extra time in the break, we can hold those questions to the end. We will move to the second of our networking breaks. On behalf of everyone, can I thank our speakers for really challenging presentations and really interesting topics. As before, tea, coffee and refreshments are available. The card in front of you will direct you to the next table, and we'll be calling you to that table in about 5 minutes. Thanks.
Oh, really? I can. Take my stuff.